As the temps start rising, I feel the familiar urge to refresh my closet, but I don't want to waste money on pieces I'll only wear once or for just one season. Thankfully, Quince changes that. Their clothes are timeless, lightweight, and far more elevated than anything else at this price. It finally feels like my wardrobe matches my standards. The best part is that Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes, so you get to look good while feeling good. I'm pretty excited that I have upgraded my athleisure wardrobe for this summer. I bought a sweatshirt and a pair of wide-leg flow pants that are two of the softest items I own, and I plan to live in them. So join me in giving your summer closet an upgrade with Quince. Go to quince.com/POTC for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/POTC to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/POTC.
When we were young, in our curriculum, I had to do choir, I had to do orchestra. Like I was making things in the course of my school day that were giving me all these neurological benefits. It's very rich in dopamine. It's very rich in serotonin. It's total cortisol lower. It has all these qualities that I think could be deeply useful to us as a mental health tool.
Something that Mom and I really believe is true when it comes to creativity, which is like the privilege of unstructured time. I know like as a college student, like there's this feeling of like I need to like plan out every day, because if I don't plan it out, then there's no plan. There's something so lovely about being able to like meander a little bit when it comes to creativity.
That was Kelly Corrigan and Claire Corrigan Lichty on Psychologists Off the Clock. We are 5 experts in psychology here to bring you cutting-edge and science-based ideas to help you flourish in your relationships, work, and health. I'm Dr. Debbie Sorensen, a clinical psychologist practicing in Mile High, Denver, Colorado, author of Act for Burnout and Act Daily Journal.
From America's Heartland, I'm Dr. Emily Edlin, a clinical psychologist based in Chicago, Illinois, and author of Autonomy Supportive Parenting.
Calling in from Vienna, Austria, I'm Michael Herold, ACT coach, confidence trainer, and the author of an upcoming book on developing your confidence and social skills.
From Boston, I'm Dr. Yael Schoenbrunn, faculty at Brown University and author of Work, Parent, Thrive, and an upcoming book about misunderstanding.
And from coastal New England, I'm Dr. Jill Stoddard, author of Be Mighty, The Big Book of Act Metaphors, and Imposter No More.
We hope you take what you learn here to build a rich and meaningful life.
Thank you for listening to Psychologists Off the Clock.
Hi, everyone. It's Debbie here. I'm bringing you a very special episode today with the amazing Kelly Corrigan and her amazing daughter, Claire Corrigan Lichty. And as you'll hear, Claire is a busy student, so I start out with a chat with just Kelly, and then Claire will join us midway through the episode. Be sure to stick around to the end to hear my post-episode chat with my co-host, Emily. Kelly Corrigan is one of my personal literary heroes. She's been called the voice of her generation by the Oprah magazine, and the poet laureate of The Ordinary by Huffington Post. She's the author of the New York Times bestsellers Tell Me More, The Middle Place, Lift, and Glitter and Glue, which are must-reads if you like reading touching and funny essays. She hosts the TV show Tell Me More on PBS and the podcast Kelly Corrigan Wonders, which features intimate conversations with high IQ, EQ people about well-being, purpose, and impact. She's given a TED Talk on love and bravery and has written some very popular op-eds for the New York Times. Welcome, Kelly. I'm happy that you're here joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're delighted. And our other guest today, Claire Corrigan Lichty, is just finishing college at the University of Virginia with a double major in computer science and drama. She writes code, stories, and jokes for stand-up, which she has performed in small clubs in Bozeman, Montana, and downtown Manhattan. She's been a glue gun kid since she developed fine motor skills and hopes to be a maker indefinitely. And Claire is going to be joining us in a few minutes. Is that right, Kelly?
She is in the middle of class. She has 3 weeks left of college.
Oh my gosh.
I said, do you think you could get out of class early for this podcast interview? And she's like, no. And I thought, God bless you. You're not wasting my money down there. Good for you. Stay in class and we'll see you in a few minutes.
Very responsible. Well, together, the two of you, mother-daughter combo, have written a new children's book, which is called Marianne the Maker. And I can't wait to talk to you about it and Claire when she joins us soon.
Yeah, we're sort of obsessed with making as the solution for well-being on an individual level, and then at a societal level, the solution for real progress is for people to remember their own sense of agency and their own ability to deconstruct and reconstruct the world around them. And, that can really unparalyze people in times like the ones we're living through, is to remember that there are things that can be done.
Absolutely. Yeah, I wanted to talk to the two of you about that. Tell me a little bit about how you've experienced this in your life. Like, what do you think? Because you're a writer and clearly have that creative instinct. I think you and Claire both seem to share that. So what does it provide to you personally, and especially the process of writing?
I'm always making multiple things. And I think I always have. And I don't think I understood that is my nature until quite recently, where I was starting to notice all of the things that get me up and running every day. Like it's caffeinating for me to get my hands into a little project. And it could be as kind of small and meaningless as figuring out what to cook for dinner or doing a puzzle, or something really significant like starting a new book project or working on a screenplay or trying to create this event. So I did a volunteer thing for years and years in Oakland for the Children's Hospital there called Notes and Words. And it was 2,000 people came, and one year we raised $3 million in a single night for Children's Hospital. And like the process of making that was pretty much as much fun as I can have. And I don't think anything kind of revs my engine quite like it. It's right on the edge of what I think people might consider manic, where I am in that flow state that people have written a lot about and studied, where I forget to go to the bathroom and I forget to eat and I don't answer my phone. And, I love being in this alternate universe. And I think that when you think about mental health and just the cratering of mental health, and then the ways that our time has been sucked into these deeply unsatisfying activities, like on phones, let's say, but many other things as well. The kill and drill society. Like when we were young, in our curriculum, I had to do choir, I had to do orchestra, we had shop class, we had home ec. Like I was making things in the course of my school day that were giving me all these neurological benefits. It's very rich in dopamine. It's very rich in serotonin. It's a total cortisol lower. It's monotasking instead of multitasking. It has all these qualities that I think could be deeply useful to us as a mental health tool. And I just don't think it's ever been thought of in quite those terms before, but I think we're missing it.
Yeah. I so relate to what you're saying because I feel that same way. And when I'm stressed or anxious or exhausted or feeling a lot of doom and gloom about the world, which I have been lately, I think one of the things that helps me more than anything is to just have some time to myself to create in some way, whether it's cooking or writing or something with my hands. And I think that recharges me more than rest, more, go to the spa or go chill and relax. It's like, yeah, okay, that's good. There's a time and a place for that. But I think there's something about creative. It's like life affirming. And
I think you have to point your mind in some direction. Mm-hmm. So the problem with the spa is that you're still alone in your own mind, turning over the same ruminations. Whereas if you're knitting, you have this kind of low level cognitive exercise unfolding that allows you to be slightly in an orthogonal space to the problems of your life and of the world. And just sort of averting your gaze for a minute is very restorative. And I
Mhm.
don't think that it's, I think of it as in service of the world, because I feel like the exhaustion and depleting nature of staring straight at the sun's worth of problems is not productive ultimately. I mean, it's just going to burn your eyes. You cannot live there. It's not a place of problem solving. It's a place of shock and horror. And then if you turn a little bit and you occupy yourself in some small way that's not so cognitively taxing, I feel like for sure as a writer, but also as a citizen, that solutions have a shot at entering your subconscious, and kind of a little knot might untie itself while you're not looking right at it. And I
Mhm.
have that all the time. I'm sure you do too with writing, where you've finished a section, you're unhappy with it. There's something that you don't understand about it that's bothering you that you can't put your finger on. And then you turn away and you go make something, some small thing, like even just like a little birthday card where you do a little drawing and you write something special and you address the envelope and get the little stamp on and try to make something small and special for someone else. And in that time, some clarity might unfold on that project that's bothering you in your sort of the mainstream of your life.
Yeah. And I love that there's all this new neuroscience, and some neuroscience that's been around a while too, but there's more science supporting this, I think, for well-being and for, I don't know, just all the good things it does for our stress level and our brain. And there's that new book out about your brain on art.
We love that book. And we love Ivy and Susan, and the women who wrote it. So one of them's a neuroscientist at Johns Hopkins, and one of them's a big design lead at Google. And together they collected all of the key research over the last couple decades around neuroaesthetics and what it's doing for us. And that really emboldened me and Claire as we started to approach this book. It's not just a sweet story that's very funny about this quirky, idiosyncratic kid who just wants to invent and doesn't want to go to the sort of standard activities of like soccer and scouts, but wants to be alone with all the odds and ends of her house and her crazy dog, Patrick Swayze, making things. But it's also part of a larger story that is good news. The good news is that this thing that we instinctively want to do and have always wanted to do around the world, across time, across culture, that instinct is guiding us to a very positive place where we can sort of trigger our internal pharmacy of our own serotonin and dopamine reserves and just get that stuff flowing. And so what Susan and Ivy gave us the confidence to say is that this making thing has been completely mischaracterized as a luxury for time-rich people who want to explore. That's not it at all. It is essential. It is a fundamental part of our nature, going back millions of years. Like, this is what we do.
Yes.
This is this defining feature of our species. And to ignore it and to go into this 2D space where we're just on Zooms and scrolling, that's ignoring our nature. And when you're at odds with your own nature, you're in trouble. Like, that's not going to feel right. You're going to feel screwy.
And I keep thinking about how the modern world, there's just such a pull away from it, right? Because we're supposed to be busy all the time and working all the time, and we have all the adulting responsibilities. And then we also have the lure of the screens and the phones. And so I think that it very often gets lost. And adults, especially kids too, because I think I want to talk about parenting in a minute, and your book is for children about this, but adults too, where we might, I think a lot of people actually have that creative instinct and that urge, but it's gotten dormant and lost.
And devalued. I mean, we're talking about, say, the Department of Defense has this whole thing called creative services, which is trying to unlock new solutions for veterans with PTSD. And so they do this mask program where they let them make a mask. And it is as effective for them as medication and talk therapy. So we're not like, this is not a soft thing that we're talking about. I mean, Claire's such an interesting she's such an interesting mind because she has this computer science side where she likes coding and she can get really lost in it. And she finds it kind of creative in and of itself. And then she has this drama side where she's writing screenplays and doing stand-up. And she wrote this incredible one-act play that I loved about a couple where the wife was secretly tracking who took out the trash for 12 years.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that's brilliant.
So anyway, we know that it is hard science. And the problems that we're seeing with kids are also real. And so the idea that there's a kid that's going to sit on a mother's lap or a father's lap and they're going to read Marianne the Maker together and they're going to reinvest in this core value is very satisfying to me. And to maybe inspire a conversation between a parent and a child about what's important and why, and this idea of like deep engagement through making, like that is very exciting to me. It's, it started as something kind of fun to do with Claire, but it's really ended up revealing to me that this is sort of my religion. Like it's a fact that you can access your internal pharmacy of serotonin and dopamine. You can lower your cortisol, and so can your children anytime you want.
Yes, that's so inspiring. And I think you see it trickle into people's lives in so many positive ways. And in the book, just for our listeners who haven't read it, it is a children's book, and it's about this girl who's in this kind of structured world of soccer practice, but skips soccer practice. This is a bit of a spoiler alert. In order to have time to create. And to me, it's almost as much of a message to the parents, because I do think, again, just like adults, kids tend to be, in all these structured activities. What advice do you have, Kelly, for parents like me? I have 2 daughters like you do, and they love to create also. How can parents encourage and foster this with their kids?
Well, one thing I would say is read the room. So Denise Pope, who runs Challenge Success, which is an organization I love, and she also educates teachers who are getting their masters at Stanford, says that kids never lie or cheat about the things they love. So notice, see your kid as they are in their own natural habitat and try to backwards design a life that leverages what they love. Versus this dad in Marianne the Maker, he says at the top, I loved this sport and so will you. Yeah. And it's like, maybe they will. Maybe they would rather stay home and work on their Moodle boot, this crazy flying machine that Marianne has in mind. And so I think the first thing is actually observing and noticing where your kid is leaning and where you're really having to drag them out the door. And then another thing that I think speaks volumes is, it is a crystal clear communication, what you value when you look at what you make space for in your home. So, did you go out and buy a basketball hoop? You love basketball. Did you go and get a little crafts table and you let the crafts stay out all the time? You don't have to clean it up. They can work on it over multiple days. Then you love and believe in crafts. Did you buy an enormous television set and put it in the middle of your living room? Then you love television. We are revealing ourselves and to our children at the same time, every time we make a decision that has monetary value and that has a timestamp. Whatever we spend time doing, whatever we spend money doing, that is functionally stating our values, whether they feel like what we wish our values were or not. And so I think that I would love it if people who read Marianne the Maker said, damn it, I'm going to set up a craft table. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to let them use it as much as they want. I'm going to put all the recycling there. I'm going to put the beads and the sequins and whatever you find at the Creative Reuse Center. I'm going to teach them how to sew. I'm going to let them take apart an old computer. I just took apart an old laptop with a kid. And it was such a cool maker moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. It's so inspiring. And if we might go back to the mess of the arts and crafts table. I feel like this is so validating to me. I should take my computer downstairs and show you, because it's like this corner of we have a small house. It's a small old house. And we have this corner of our dining room, but because it's a small house, that is like main living space. And it has Legos and fabric and a glue gun and paint and all this stuff. And it drives me bananas sometimes, because I walk into that room and I'm just like, I can't believe we live like this. It's kind of embarrassing. And yet my daughters, and right now they're 12 and 10. And if they're left to their own devices, especially my 10-year-old right now, she doesn't have something to do for 30 minutes. She'll be over there doing something, making something. It's just that urge. And I think this is making me feel better about my mess, because I always feel slightly embarrassed about it. Oh, Claire's here. Hi, Claire.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I was running from class.
We know you have very important things to do, finishing up your college career here.
One more week of college.
Amazing. Wow. Congratulations. So, Claire, I'm really curious. We talked a little bit about the book already, but we've been talking about this urge, this instinct to make things. And I really have the feeling, partly because of your bio and your comment about the hot glue gun. You've been a hot glue gun kid, and just what I've read about you, that you really have this instinct. Was the book a little bit loosely based on you, do you think? Were you a Marianne type kid when you were little?
I think I was, but I think that more than the book being based on me, it was based on like this value we had in our family. So I don't know if my mom already mentioned that Marianne the Maker was based off of the story her and my dad used to tell me as a kid, called Marianne the Faker, which is like just a simple like don't lie story about this woman Marianne who lies about skipping soccer practice and then gets caught, and it's like we should not tell lies. And I wanted to like make it something more than that. And I was a maker kid, but I was also just raised in a maker household where my mom would give us like, recycling and hot glue and just let us go buck wild, which leads to some pretty cool stuff and a lot of stuff that ends up in the garbage. And then my dad is like also has this creative side to him and was a really good cook. And so I would cook with him a lot. And so it just felt like it was more like, yes, there's a part of me that's in Marianne, but I think there's a part of my sister in Marianne and my mom and my dad, and just like that type of environment that I spent my childhood in.
We're all Marianne's.
And now you're a drama major, Claire. So drama and computer
how did
science,
that
which is
happen?
an interesting combination. And well, I was actually just talking to one of my neighbors this morning, walking the kids to school, because this is the time of year when all the kids' plays that they've been working on are coming out. We're talking about how cool it is to have the opportunity when you're young to practice that skill and to get comfortable speaking in public and being on stage. I don't really remember doing much of that as a kid. And so I love that kids are doing more of that.
I did some drama as a kid, but mostly I would just like do things for my family. So like the election of 2020, I was stressed up and down the wazoo, as I'm sure many people were, but I was like paying attention and like reading the New York Times every day and everything. And so I was like, I have to go. So I went up in my room and I came downstairs and I had written this poem called like, "'Twas the Night of the Election." And I was like, turn off the TV. I have something everyone needs to see.
I love it.
And so definitely a bit of like there's a little like prima donna Liza Minnelli in me for sure. But yeah. And then I did like in middle school, I did a lot of drama stuff. But being a drama major in college is awesome because you just have access to so many resources that I think you wouldn't get to otherwise. So I'm going to miss it.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that we were talking about when we were taking Marianne the Maker out on this little pre-order tour in California over Claire's spring break was why you do it, like between well-being and the flourishing and intellectual capacity and connection. And Claire said, do it for the myelination. And I was like, what is myelination? So Claire, what is myelination?
Okay, great. So for those of us who have not taken AP Bio very recently, to just recap, a neuron are these like really long cells, And the like long part of it is called an axon. And then surrounding the axon, there's this fatty layer called your myelin sheath. And it basically works like a conductor. And so when you have stronger myelination, you're able to like enable better connections, and it helps the different parts of your brain coordinate better, and it helps with like synapse connections. So basically it just like puts you on a like, it's like a superfood, but for your brain.
So it's like a super activity. Like it's like,
Yeah.
I'm seeing the t-shirt. It's like, Marianne, do it for the myelination. Like, and I feel that. I actually have this sense when I'm making something that I'm thinking better. Yeah. And there's this idea that we came across about engaged leisure versus sedentary leisure. And engaged leisure is a perfect way of thinking about creativity and making. There's no real outcome. You're not going to necessarily sell it, and you're not going to submit it, and it's not going to be something for the eyes or judgment of others. It's for what happens to you physiologically during the process that might make you better at the thing you do to make money, to be judged, to submit, etc. That's how I feel about it. I feel like every time I'm turning my attention to a creative project, I'm investing in my main work by giving myself this engaged leisure that's super regenerative.
Yeah. No, I think it's fair. This is also relevant to a psychology podcast because, we're thinking about like enriching things that spark creativity and that are good for our mental health and our stress, but also, cognitively. I think it does have all these benefits. And we'll link in our show notes for today to an episode we did with Alex Pang years ago. And he has a book called Rest where he writes about this idea of like active forms of rest. And it could be sports or going on a hike or something like that. But I think we're also talking about sort of creative hobbies and creating and making things, which is another thing that, it is a form of rest, as Kelly and I were talking about earlier before you joined us, Claire, about how sometimes that actually, like getting into that flow state with it really kind of helps us sort of recharge in a different way. But it's good for us in so many different ways.
Rest was one of the books that we recommend to people. So Your Brain on Art, there's a book called Shop Class as Soulcraft, which is about this unnatural break between manual and mental and how exciting and holistic it can be to be doing something that involves both your hands and your mind. And then Rest was also one of the books that we really recommend because it goes to the meditative nature of any time where you're monotasking. Like to me, the thing that I'm the most tired of is monkey mind. I'm so sick of myself ping-ponging around up there and just not being able to settle in and block out. And almost my entry point to try to get into that state of monotasking is creativity, where it's like, you know what? I think I'm going to go paint a canvas board. Like literally for no other reason than I'm just tired of jumping around so much in my mind. I'd rather just zero in, calm down, get into some different kind of physiological state, and then take that state back to my job.
Kelly, I want to actually ask you about writing specifically a little bit, because one of the things I find, I get monkey mind a lot too. I had it last night. I have it, when times are stressful, that it really goes bananas in there in my head. And one of the things that helps me is to just get up in the morning and write. And usually, it's complete rubbish. It's nothing I would ever want anyone to read, but it's just me kind of writing, getting words on the page, and it really helps me. And I'm just curious, you're a professional writer. What are some of your writing practices, and how have you found writing specifically to be life enhancing? Or have you? I guess I shouldn't assume. I'm kind of assuming that you do.
In total, writing has had an incredible impact on my life. It's helped me focus on things I care about. It's helped me become a person who's more observant, which is rewarding. It's like a reward loop that I get to live in every day. Like being someone who notices a lot is a gift unto itself. But I don't have a single good habit to share. on writing. Like Edward, my husband's like, when did you write this? Every time I hand him something, I'm like, I don't know, it's like fits and starts. Like I'll make 100 podcasts and then I'll find some little window and there'll be a piece of something that I started to write, and then I'll come back to it, and then I can see it really clearly. I can finish it quickly, and then it sits there, getting dusty, and then so I am not regular about it, and I don't have any good tips except to say, like, forgive yourself for however it is that you work. Like, the fact is I did manage to finish 4 books, and I'm going to finish another one, and it's not pretty, and it still turned out okay. So don't beat yourself up, and don't waste any emotional energy yelling at yourself about how you work. But you don't have the cycles to spare, honestly. Not at 57, I don't have time to be mad at myself anymore.
You said you don't have anything to offer, but I think that is something, which is that you have to do what works for you. And certainly I will write when I feel like I need to, or it's there. I have something I want to write about, but then I will go for weeks, months, longer without writing anything. And so, maybe there are people who do that daily writing practice and that works for them. But the fact that you're a successful writer and you haven't done that just shows that we're all different.
I also think that this kind of speaks to something that my mom and I really believe is true when it comes to creativity, which is the privilege of unstructured time, where I know as a college student, there's this feeling of I need to plan out every day, because if I don't plan it out, then there's no plan. And I think that as a babysitter and a camp counselor, I'm super aware of that when it comes to taking care of kids. It's we need to have a plan, because if I don't, what are we going to do? And I think that especially going into the summer, there's something so lovely about being able to meander a little bit when it comes to creativity. And I just think I'm personally excited to do a little meandering with my free time.
I wrote an essay once about the summer that I just didn't get my act together to sign my kids up for camp. And they were little, I just couldn't do it. And I basically let them just hang around all summer. And it was hard. I mean, I'm not going to lie, as a working parent, there were moments where I thought this was the stupidest thing I've ever done. But it was also great because they learned how to entertain themselves, and they would just find ways. They'd go poke around in the backyard. They'd come inside and create something. And it was actually just letting them have a sense of boredom. I think it was really good for them, because I think in today's world, it's you have to have them, adults too, right? It's we're busy, busy, busy. And we just need to have time where we're just not plugged into anything. We're not structured.
And that's a very countercultural idea.
It is.
And it's hard to go against the culture. I mean, the context is such a driver in all of our choices. We like to think that we have so much agency and that we're charting our own course. But the fact is, a lot of times we're swimming with the tide. It takes a lot of energy and awareness to swim against the tide. And the tide says, be productive. The tide says, set them up and knock them down. Schedule out your day, hit your to-do list, land your day. And I feel more and more as I get older that the greatest luxury is to have fewer things on my list and to actually enjoy doing them, or be able to walk to a meeting, to bake in 45 minutes. To walk 1.5 miles, 2 miles to a meeting in Manhattan, that's lovely. That means I've made it. It's so deciding what it looks like and feels like to make it, to have the life you want, rather than to accept the story that society's going to give you about what it looks like and feels like to have a great life. Because that story would be go, go, go. Oh, I had 9 meetings today. I saw so many people. I'm moving so far ahead on each one of my projects, and I'm just killing it. And it's right, but you're killing yourself too. And you're killing your relationships too. Slow down. Yeah. Slow down. You're not important. There's 8 billion people here. Who cares if you could get your list done? Who cares? It's just don't buy the hype.
I actually think that maybe that might change, because I feel there used to be this like, at least with my generation, I feel like there used to be this promise, like, oh, if you work really hard and you get straight A's in high school, like, and do extracurriculars, you will go to an Ivy League school and you will make six figures within 5 years of graduating, in a way that, like, I don't think those promises have a guarantee of paying off anymore. Especially right now with, like, I have many friends whose, like, grad school acceptances and research opportunities have been rescinded. And so I think that obviously would be great if everyone could get good jobs. Also, because that doesn't feel like a guarantee anymore, I think so many more people my age are really being intentional about how they want to spend their time and like what the different versions of success look like, because the traditional version of success is maybe not as accessible as it like was promised. I don't know if that rings true.
Yeah, I mean, I have hope that some of those cultural narratives that have been around for so long are starting to shift a little bit, because, yeah, I think that American dream promise is people are kind of aware more now, at least from my point of view.
You know, I wanted to share this quote. Ivy and Susan have been the women who wrote Your Brain on Art and pulled all that research together, and between the covers of this really wonderful book that supports everything we've been saying with data. They have been going to school districts, and one of the things they say is that denying kids something they need to be healthy is a form of abuse and neglect. The biology is that clear. And when we frame neuroaesthetics as baseline, not luxury, table stakes, not extracurriculars, legislation will follow. Legislation that takes us backwards to a time when home ec, shop class, choir, and orchestra were built into the daily lives of students. So think old-fashioned.
Yeah.
Let's like go old-fashioned.
I remember making a gumball machine in shop class in junior high school.
Oh, that's
back
a cool
in the day.
one.
Yeah, I wish I still had it. I don't know. It's been lost along the way in the last however many years.
I remember we all made drawstring bags, and it was so fun because in home ec, and it was so fun because each person did it differently. Like some people made a tiny, tiny little drawstring bag for like a pair of earrings, and other people made these gigantic drawstring bags that you could like put over a lawnmower.
Oh, wow.
And it was so fun to see,
So cool.
see how people interpreted the assignment. But we were in there making something. And then the thing that's so powerful is that the thing we made, everyone would give it to their moms generally. And then it would get used. And that idea of like being useful, of creating something with your own hands that is of value to another person, especially someone you love and care about, phenomenal.
Yeah.
I've been crashing out about graduation. And so the thing I've been doing is making cards for all my friends, which is not as useful as a drawstring bag that goes over a lawnmower, but it does put you in that like maker mindset, and it's like something you will give to someone you love. And that's the sweet spot for me.
Yeah. And they'll treasure it. And it's so personal and meaningful. And it helps with connection. And actually, that's a good segue, because I wanted to talk to you about creating in collaboration. And I love that you're a mother-daughter pair who created this children's book and worked together on it. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was like? Because sometimes we do these things alone, right? And that's great. That can be really nourishing. But sometimes we create with someone. So what was that process like for the two of you?
Claire is a great creative thought partner for many reasons. One is because we're related and we're in a safe space together. I think she's probably more honest with me than almost anyone else that I deal with on any creative project. You know, because everyone's going to be nice to me. The people at Random House, my podcast producer, like everybody's going to try to say it in really sweet way. And Claire's more like, I don't like this page. Like, I don't know what's wrong with it, but it's not singing. And it's like, that is so great to just get an honest reaction, an unshaped, unpolished, easy to interpret reaction. Because, you know, like the biggest mistake people make in communication is thinking that it happened. And part of the reason why it gets lost in translation is because we're all trying to be so careful with each other. But in our relationship, we can be more direct and we can say, I don't get it. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Is that funny? You know, I'll be like, I think it's funny. I'm like, is it? I think it's not funny to me. And she's like, well, it's funny to me. So the directness is unusual.
Can I jump in with a quick story? Because I mentioned to Kelly before we started recording, I'm taking a memoir class right now. And I wrote a piece. It was pretty short. And I read it to my husband and kids. And my 10-year-old daughter said, Mom, that was good. But in that one part, you sound like you're bragging about yourself. And I was like, thank you. Nobody else said that. Maybe nobody else felt that way. But I was like, that was the best advice. And she just said it so sweet and innocently. And I was like,
yeah,
that's very helpful feedback. Thank you. At 10 years old, I was like, oh, she'd be a good audience. Anyway, go on. I wanted to just interject that real quick. I loved that she did that.
And I just have tremendous respect for Claire's taste and her creative instincts, and also the breadth of experience that she brings to it. Like, she's a drama major, and so she's taken a lot of classes that I've never taken. She has taught herself how to play the guitar, and she's done a lot of stand-up comedy, and she's written a lot of code, and I don't know anything about any of those things. And it's such incredible access for me to talk to somebody who has such a varied background. Like, it's part academic, it's part experience, it's part like in a variety of venues and academic disciplines. And all of that comes to bear in a way that I find invaluable. I would do every creative thing with Claire if I could.
Oh, that's
like
amazing.
I'm a danger of swallowing her whole. Like, she's like,
I'm blushing.
That is so sweet.
But then I think with Marianne, what was really awesome, and I think is different than a lot of the ways my mom and I, like, often when my mom and I collaborate creatively, it's like, oh, my mom is writing this thing. Can I give her feedback on her? I'm like writing these essays. Can she give me feedback? But like, there's fundamental ownership that one of us has. And what was really cool about Marianne is I think we both, once we got the all clear from the publishing team, we both valued the book and we valued the character more than we valued like being right or ownership or anything like that. And I think that was something that when I got to interview Pete Docter, who's like the creative director at Pixar, that was something he spoke about as like being really valuable in like the making of Pixar movies. And I just really related to it because I think that is true. I don't know, would you say that's true, Mom? That we were like, how do we make this book the best it can be, as opposed to how do we like make
put
something
our stamp on it or win the argument or no, for sure. And I do want to point out that Claire and I have interviewed a bunch of super cool creatives and makers, and we put them through my podcast, which is called Kelly Corrigan Wonders. But one of them is Pete Docter, who did Up and Monsters Inc. and Inside Out. I mean, he's really one of the great creatives in America. He's an Oscar winner. And interestingly, that morning, talk about teamwork, that morning I woke up and I had no voice. I mean, it has probably been 30 years since I lost my voice. It was probably like college was the last time. And I was like this. Like, Claire, you got to go interview Pete Docter. Because we can't try to reschedule with him. We felt so lucky that he was making time for us. And we were actually in Oakland, so we could do it face to face. And it was just like, you got to go in there and do it alone. And she did. And he is so chock full of takeaways and wisdom and humility. So
I love that.
It was such a joy to hear him answer this set of questions that we've been asking everybody, you know, TV writers and casting people and Rainn Wilson and Hank Green and, you know, all these super fun creators. So if you love that kind of conversation, we have lots of them for you over at Kelly Corrigan.
Oh, yeah. You've interviewed some incredible people. It's actually just looking at your lineup. It's like, wow, that is amazing. And actually, I want to ask a question that I think is related about bravery. And Kelly, your TED Talk, it's called To Love is to Be Brave. And I was really struck by the concept of bravery when it comes to making and creating things, because sometimes we create and we keep things for ourselves and we, you know, that is enough. But sometimes we put things out in the world, right? Like we interview someone, we put that out in the world, we write a children's book, We put that in the world. We do stand-up comedy, Claire. We put that out into the world. And to me, there's a lot of bravery, I think, when we've invested heart and soul into something, and it's so vulnerable to put it out in the world and face, people reading it or viewing it. So I just want to hear from both of you to kind of and hear your thoughts on that, on what it's like for you to put things out in the world and how you do that. And I don't know, any guidance you might have for people who are considering, oh, should I post this on Substack? Should I put this out? Should I do an art display?
I think it's a hard time to share work because of the sheer volume. And it's so many barriers to entry have been lowered or entirely dissolved. And so we feel like we could write 15 Marianne books. Marianne makes a mistake. Marianne makes a memory. Like, we have a list, and we see her as a great material for a series. Claire's even talked to the production company that she's interning with about what it would be like to try to have an animated series featuring Marianne. So we have big eyes here. Like, we have a big dream for this kid because we love what she's saying. We think we're going to have to keep putting this message out there over and over again for people to really hear it and make space for it in our sort of productivity obsessed world. So I'm feeling the just overflowing marketplace more than ever because there's just a lot of kids' books that come out in the year, and some by very famous people like Reese Witherspoon or Seth Meyers. And we're out there with our little Marianne trying to make her catch on. Mm-hmm. So I would just say that it's always a crapshoot. It doesn't necessarily indicate the quality because there's just such volume.
I think that relates to what my mom was saying. For me, I think that I used to post my stand-up comedy videos online for myself, where I'd be like, I like this. I think it's cool. And I want people to like it. And then I think with Marianne, and something that my mom is super intentional about is don't just add to the chatter. And so we're not pushing Marianne so we can be the next big thing. We just really believe in the lessons that can be learned from this book. And so I think that there's something when you take away the value judgment of how things are received and think about it, to me, it's the same way of sharing something in the world is giving a good apology. You shouldn't be doing it so you get forgiven. You should be doing it because you want the other person to hear it. And so I think that that's been really helpful for me when thinking about is this something I want to share with the world or with someone, or is this something that I just haven't gotten attention in a while and I need a hit?
Yeah.
It's who is it serving? Who are you serving? And if you really believe that you're serving the larger conversation, that emboldens a lot of activity.
Yeah, we talk so much on this podcast about values. And I think if you do a values check, right? Am I doing this because I created something and I want to share it? If you're doing it for a values-driven reason versus I want more likes on Instagram or something, which, that's just different.
When you do it for values-driven reasons, sharing it is awesome. Even if no one ever responds to it, or if just there was one person in the audience who it really impacts, you did it. You changed someone.
Right, you're done.
You're done. Yeah.
And the other thing I want to say before we close, because I think it's such a gift that we got from reading Ivy and Susan's book, is that per all those physiological benefits, all that serotonin and dopamine that's in our natural internal pharmacies that we can click into and let it start dripping, giving us that good neurochemical bubble bath. You can also access that by beholding. So noticing and reveling in a thing gives you those same outcomes. So Claire and I were driving up and down California to do these talks about making and creativity and reading the book to kids, which was such a blast. And we would listen to a song and we would just behold the song. Claire's that lyric is so good. And I'm I know. And what is that instrument he's playing right there? Is that a vibraphone? And she'd be yes. And isn't it cool that it doesn't come in until the third verse? And I was I know. And then in the bridge, and we were just getting off on this one song. And I was we are beholding. this is beholden. And Claire said, interestingly, that her therapist was like a noticing mind. How did she say it, Claire?
The opposite of an anxious mind is a noticing brain. And so it helps reduce anxiety.
Yeah, I love that. So, and I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today, because I think this is what we need right now. We need to tap into these like life affirming, really human, common humanity things that are, creating and making and getting out into the world. And this is what we need. And so I'm so glad that you're putting this book into the world and that you're coming on our podcast today to talk about it. We will absolutely link to all the resources we talked about today, your podcast, your book, of course. It'll all be there on our website. And any final words for our listeners before we wrap up today?
Marianne has her own website. It's Marianne the Maker. It's MariAnne, themaker.com. And that always has any upcoming events. So if you want to come see us live, you can see the tour schedule there.
Awesome. I'm going to check and see if you roll through Denver. And if so, I'll be there.
Awesome.
Claire, any final words?
We really love this book and we think it's fun to read. And if you have little people in your life,
it's very fun. It's a cute story and it's inspiring.
Thank you. So yeah, I would get it if I were you.
Thank you. I'll be reading it to my kids. And like I said, I actually think it's inspiring for adults too and parents. So check it out. And thank you both so much. It was really a pleasure talking to you two today. Mother-daughter duo here.
Thank you. Sorry I was late. Advanced playwriting.
You have important things to do, Claire, and congrats again on your graduation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Well, we are finished with the conversation with Kelly and Claire. And Emily, we're here to talk a little bit about the conversation.
So, Debbie, I was so curious just thinking about this interview as I was listening, what it was like for you as the interviewer to have this setup with Kelly and her college-age daughter.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. We have had a mother-daughter pair before, but they were older than this pair. And we've had a father and son pair on as well. And so it's kind of fun to hear their dynamic and to do the interview. I think it's also pretty clear in the interview that I'm a huge fan of Kelly's writing. And so I was also a little bit nervous going into it just to, I was fangirling out a little bit. And so she was so lovely and nice that I got over that pretty quickly.
Well, and they just had so much passion for the topic and it was contagious. I felt like it was sparking my own drive to maybe be more in touch with my creativity. It's hard on a daily basis in our daily grind to be intentional about that.
Yeah. How does that show up in your family? I'm curious about that because I know you're a creative person.
Well, I wish I had more time to write for fun. I feel like any time I spend writing is for other people to read. And there's something different about just writing for myself and just not worrying about the product or the outcome. And that's a different joy. And so I really wish I had more time for that. Something you all were talking about that caught my attention, of course, is the parenting realm and how this drive is so deeply wired for all of us, including our children. And as you were talking about your kids, I was feeling a little envious because I feel like I'm dealing with technology as a major competitor for using their creativity in these hands-on ways in their daily lives.
Yeah, I mean, technology, I actually can see a difference between my older child and my younger child already in how much time and energy is spent on art and creativity and hands-on thing. And I do think that it's partly that transition into the teens and into adolescence, and the technology part, I think, starts to take more of their life.
Right. And for my daughters who are 13 and 15, they're very social. And so it's kind of this combination of the technology is social, but it's passive on their phones and they're not making like they could if they really had nothing else to do.
Yeah. Well, I have noticed that with my kids. If I say, hey, your iPad time is up, get off that. A lot of times they'll go straight for the art table, right? Or straight for a book or something like that. But when given the choice, they'd probably be on their iPad. I mean, but isn't that kind of true for adults too? Like I was going to sit down and I mentioned that I'm taking a writing class in the interview, and I was going to sit down and work on something that I'm writing for that. And I scrolled around online for a good half an hour. So the struggle is real, right? It's it's hard to do this.
I know, which is why this is a great discussion, really, is they are so passionate. You gave such great examples. And I think it is just a really good reminder to be motivated to make time for these small and big tasks that require creativity. I think it's just, as you all were talking about, it's essential for our well-being. And when we do take the time to do something, even like you were saying, cooking a meal or something that's creating, it feels good unless you're really busy on a Tuesday night and just trying to get food on the table. So there's different ways of relating to the cooking, right? But I think it's just been a really good reminder of how essential it is to our well-being.
Well, and I think sometimes when you're in that moment where you can choose between scrolling around online or cooking a meal or doing something more creative, is think about how you feel afterwards. Like, I don't feel that great after scrolling around for an hour. I feel kind of bleh. But if I've been doing something creative, I usually feel pretty satisfied and energized at the end. And so, there's kind of that short-term, long-term effect that's good to keep in mind.
Well, I will say that I feel like in our family, we're modeling for our kids. And to a degree, my husband, for example, he's a psychologist in his day job, but he has a passion for art, and he has been perfecting and refining his craft for 10 years. And now is even selling his pieces and showing his art in shows. And so they see what he's putting into this art that's not his job. It's not for an income. And it is a critical ingredient to his daily well-being. So he's a good reminder in my personal life to keep it prioritized.
No, it's very inspiring. I love that idea of unwinding at the end of the day with drawing. I love that.
Well, he does it while we watch TV.
So okay. Well,
combining activities.
There you go. All right. Well, thanks, Emily. And thank you all for listening to this episode.
Thank you for listening to Psychologists Off the Clock. You can now listen to our podcast ad-free by becoming a supporter on Patreon. You can link to Patreon on our website or go to patreon.com/offtheclocksite.
If you enjoy our podcast, you can help us out by leaving a review and sharing this episode with a friend or an enemy who would enjoy it.
You can get more psychology tips by subscribing to our fabulous newsletter on Substack. Or if you're still addicted to social media, find us on Instagram and LinkedIn.
We'd like to thank our rockstar production manager, Jadine Stout-Williams.
Now for the boring part. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and is not meant to be a substitute for mental health treatment. If you're looking for mental health treatment, please visit the resources page of our website, offtheclockpsych.com.
Can you all give me a quick sound check? Maybe if you give me a line or two from Shakespeare, your favorite Shakespeare piece.
How about just testing, 1, 2, 3? This is Jill.
Romeo, Romeo.
In fair Verona, where we lay our scene.
I think we should do it again more peppy.
A little
Yeah, more energy.
A
I was
little more
about
pep.
to
That
say,
was
I was
very
about
mellow.
to
Everybody
say.
sounds depressed.
Crack the Red Bull open. Let's do that again.
Oh, bother. From the 100-acre wood, I'm Eeyore. All right, ready?
Come on. With a 15 take, we're going to nail it. Outtake.
Oh my gosh, my dog is barking now.
Oh, I was
Seriously,
like,
someone's
who's
ringing the
that?
doorbell.
Who is howling? Thank you for listening to Wolfman Jack.
One more, ladies.
All right, you want to
Last
do one last one? All right,
One
last
Oh,
last
I'm
one.
going to do like 3,
Yeah.
4, 5 more. Let's do this.